Welcome back, everyone, to our CU Faith Fridays. We took a little hiatus over the summer, but we're back now with the start of the fall semester. And our guest today is Dr. Matthew Whelan, the new and ninth president, I think, of Caldwell University. And so, Dr. Whelan, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really pleased to be here.
Great, awesome. So, as our viewers and listeners know, our CU Faith Fridays segment is really just being able to talk to students, faculty, staff, alums about their faith life and how they live it on campus and why it's important to them. So, we'll start off with the first question, which I think is always nice for people to get to know you a little bit better. So, um, yeah, what would you like to share about yourself? It could be kind of where you're from originally, family, hobbies, interests, all of that.
Yeah, no, thanks, Colleen. That's great, and thanks for the opportunity. I love to be able to connect with students and alumni, and parents and friends, however I can, especially in this pandemic era we're living in for a little while, and just reminding everyone we'll get through this. We will get through this, and we'll come out the other side better with a sense of return to normalcy. So, just keep your hands sanitized and your masks on, and follow social distancing protocols, and say a prayer every now and then, because that certainly helps too. So what about me? I don't want to bore people. I'm new to Caldwell, but maybe not so new. I actually, Caldwell was the first town that my wife Kathy and I lived on after we were married. So when we returned from our honeymoon, we set up a brand new apartment here in Caldwell on Bloomfield Avenue, probably just about a mile and a half from here, down by 507 Bloomfield Avenue. So we're not brand new to Caldwell. Kathy worked as a waitress at the Cloverleaf Inn while she was going to get her master's degree in teaching. She taught at Washington Avenue Elementary School. I worked at William Patterson at the time. And I'm also not a stranger to this area, because my aunt and my godmother, someone who's important in my upbringing, lived a few miles from here in West Caldwell. My brother lives down the road in Essex Fells. My other brother lives in Parsippany. My other brother lives in Morris Plains. My sister lives not too far away in Mountainside. Then I think, if I've gotten everyone, I have a brother in Wall Township, New Jersey, and a sister in Point Pleasant, New Jersey, where my mom was, but my mom just passed last summer. And then finally, last but not least, we have a brother down in Alexandria, Virginia. So I think that makes eight, if I missed anybody. But I come from a big family, so that is certainly within my background. It's something to this day that's very important to me, my wife, my brothers and sisters, all of our in-laws, or outlaws as they're called. Um, the in-laws, all of the sisters-in-law get along probably better than the brothers do sometimes. So that's always both good and interesting for the brothers. But together we have 28 kids, 28 wonderful nieces and nephews and cousins. I've got three beautiful daughters, and I'm really happy to bring this family and join my family back here in this area, but also join the Caldwell family. So
Great, excellent, awesome. And I'm also one of eight, which I think we've talked about before. So we're not quite at the stage in life where we have 28 nieces and nephews, but we're well on our way, I think, as a family. So
give it time.
that's great. Um, obviously, I know that you're super busy with pandemic life and the opening of Caldwell University, but do you have any hobbies or interests outside of being the president of a Catholic university?
I have a lot of hobbies. I have put some on the side burner for a while. I grew up playing soccer, coaching soccer, refereeing soccer. My kids are soccer players, but they're also artists and musicians, and I missed that part of my life. I didn't really get to explore my art life growing up as well as I probably should have. But so I love everything. I could watch soccer. I could um, coach soccer. I could do a lot with that, but it's really been a formative part of my life, because you learn certain things. You learn how to work together in a team. You learn how to come together when you might be behind a little bit in a game or a contest. You learn how to look at other competitors, and work on your solutions, so that you can, if the goal is to work with your teammate, and If your goal is to overcome the problem in front of you, which might be another team or a practice, you learn to be able to work through those things. So I think soccer is an incredibly important part of my, how I was formed. In addition to being from a big family, so I also grew up in a bookstore, so I love to read. Unfortunately, I spend most of my time reading presidential stuff, if that's even a word. Um, but I love to read, and reading about biographies and leadership and things like that. So those are my two hobbies, and other than that, I just love being with my kids, and they're all off at their own college now, and I've got a daughter who's a senior in college, Mary Kathleen, and Eileen is a freshman in
Wow.
university. They are both down in the North Carolina area, so we're keeping a close eye on them.
Mm.
And I have an older daughter who's beginning her career as a speech pathologist, who hopefully she'll spend about 4 days a week with us here, and then she'll be in the city the rest of the time. But we'll hopefully sing in church, because she is a wonderful and beautiful, gifted singer. And I always told her that, God gave you the gift. You've got to give it back to others.
Mhm. Mhm. That's great. That's great. Excellent. Okay, so let's kind of transition into talking about kind of how you came to Caldwell and why you wanted to be a part of a Catholic campus community. One thing I specifically remember from your interview on campus was you really had a profound experience when you were in college at a small Catholic college. And so maybe that played a role in wanting to become the president of Caldwell University, but yeah, wondering what it was about this school or this campus community that really attracted you here.
So it's a great question, Colleen. I've been very, very blessed. I've had a great career. My career started with what was going to be a 1-year stint as an admissions counselor at my alma mater, Mercyhurst College, Sisters of Mercy School up in Erie, Pennsylvania. I had gotten into law school, was accepted to University of Pittsburgh Law School, but they presented me a bill that was almost six figures to get through the tuition and room and board that was required out at the University of Pittsburgh. So to me at that time, that was not a tuition bill; it was a house. I just
Mm.
wasn't accustomed to that. It didn't come with very much financial aid at all. And so I decided to work for 1 year as an admissions counselor at Mercyhurst College in Erie, Pennsylvania, my alma mater. And that was about 33 years ago, I think. So that 1 year sort of expanded a little bit. I had a great career. I spent time as a young admissions counselor, working my way up to assistant director of admissions. I did get out of admissions for a little while. I worked in corporate. I found very quickly that I did not get the fulfillment in a corporate role, which compensated us well.
Mm.
I did not get the fulfillment of working with people and humans and young students that I got from being an admissions counselor. So I got back into admissions here in New Jersey for a little while, and
Mm.
was ultimately called back to be director of admissions at Mercyhurst. Spent some time there where Kathy and I had our first child. Sarah was born in Erie, Pennsylvania, after about 5 different tries.
Mm.
Sarah did not want to come, uh, but she finally came. Was born up in Erie, Pennsylvania, and um, at that point, what I call a series of births and deaths brought us back to New Jersey. Kathy went on bed rest when she had her first child, and I suddenly realized we're about 450 miles away from home, and we didn't have a lot of family around. And we always had family to support us, no matter where we were. So between that, my dad had passed a month or so before. We just decided maybe it was time to get back home. So I came back here. I took a job over at Hofstra University, where I worked for almost 5 years as a dean of graduate, ultimately executive dean of enrollment, and ultimately on to St. John's at the large Catholic university in Queens. And I loved it. St. John's, much like Caldwell, it has wonderful people. People
Mhm.
who are dedicated to serving and whatnot. Um, I was actually commuting about 3 hours a day back and forth from St. John's, and so I would very often put my children to bed on a Sunday night, and not see them again until Thursday.
Mm.
It was a tough ride out to Long Island from St. John's back and forth. And so I decided, just to be a better dad, I'd move a little closer to home for a while. I accepted a job at Stony Brook University as the assistant provost for enrollment, overseeing all the enrollment. And that grew over 14 years into a series of vice presidential jobs and advisor to the president. just a great experience doing everything from running student affairs for a short time to overseeing facilities and university police departments and teaching in their higher ed program and doing a bunch of things that really rounded out my experience. And ultimately, I thought it was time to get to your answer that you're looking for. I know I've been talking for a while, but I thought it was time for me to give back to the place where I got my start.
Mm.
I got my start at a small Catholic college, now a university, much like Caldwell, that sort of took me as a first generation student, fully Pell eligible student, student who didn't have a lot of, or any actually, family tradition of going to college. And they shaped me and taught me how to learn and taught me how to be a good student. Ultimately went on, with that benefit to get a master's degree and a doctoral degree. So it was time for me, I felt, after about 15 years at Stony Brook, to give back to a type of place that had helped form me. And so Caldwell and I just seemed to get along, and I liked what I saw here. And I thought I could bring some skills and experiences that I've had to hopefully put Caldwell on a trajectory towards even better things than it's done now.
Mhm.
That's a
That's great.
long-winded answer, I'm sorry.
That is okay. And I think the next question kind of fits really well with that is what does it mean to you to be a leader of a Catholic university?
So I think what's critically important to be a leader of any university is authenticity, believing in yourself, your own personal sort of mission and vision, but also believing in your own personal mantra and your own personal integrity. And I found that many of the things that I am firmly rooted in and believe in is what Caldwell is all about. Certainly, service, pursuit of a more just society. Certainly, you know, teaching students to seek the truth. And different people can sometimes find different truths, but by meeting together and talking together in small groups, I think is what I found here. I came from a university that had 600 people in a chemistry class.
Mm.
It's hard to get together in those types of classes and whatnot. And I just found that the smallness of Caldwell University allows us really to find those students who are waiting to be found. They may not know it, but they're waiting to be found and sort of help them use their own energies to mold them into the people they want to be. And I think we can do that very, very effectively at a small university. As far as the Catholic university, I think the faith tradition that we have is especially important. Um, with all of the things that the Catholic Church has gone through and some tough times recently, we find in our faith, I think, um, some of the basic human truths that love thy neighbor, that's sort of hard to argue with. Respect your parents, hard to argue with. So I think there are some things that we can find in our faith tradition that bring us together, not just on Sunday at daily mass and through communion, but throughout our lives. So I really enjoyed that. I really felt that was an important part of who I was and who Kathy was. Kathy and I, but mostly Kathy, single-handedly built a mission trip for our own parish, St. James in Long Island, for 5 years, I guess. Took students from Long Island to Hurricane, West Virginia, to reach out and do some missionary work, and whether we were building houses, which we did, or building ramps for disabled people, or just having one of our young guys with a guitar strum a song so my daughter could sing for a elderly shut-in. That teaches these kids something. And it was a very profound experience for the students. It was a really hot day one day, sweltering, probably 102 degrees. And we were down in literally what's called a holler, a hollow of West Virginia, and it was a trailer
Mhm.
park. And within sight on a hillside, probably about a mile away, there were some beautiful, stately homes. And one of the kids turned and said, how can these people live here and those people live there? And so that for us was really, that was a home run. We said, the kids get it, they understand.
Mhm.
And so that experience helped us bring sort of the power and knowledge of we've got to share our wealth, our God given talents, whatever they might be, our material wealth, with others who may not have as much. And that's one of the things that brought me back to Caldwell.
Mm. That's great.
The
That's
ability
great.
to engage in that, I guess, is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah. There's a quote by Dr. Paul Farmer, who is a doctor and works predominantly in Haiti. He wrote this book called Mountains Beyond Mountains. I think he has some other books too, but or the book is written about him. And one of the lines in there is that God has given the world everything it needs. It's up to us to share that. And I always kind of go back to that because I think that's so true. That's so true. We often think that poverty is a lack of, what God has given the world and people, but it's really not. It's that some people just use more and have more than others. And if we shared that all around, the world would be a very different place. So that's
And
great.
Saint Vincent de Paul has a great saying to that. It goes something to the effect of, um, "No man is too poor to give,
Mm,
and
hmm
no man is too rich to receive." And that sort of
mm,
explains a lot. That
hmm
you can share things different ways. You can share knowledge and wisdom. You can share material wealth with those who may not have it. But you can share that knowledge and that wisdom and that prayer with people who may have material wealth. So it's
Yeah.
really this sort of transformational rather than transactional
hmm
effort that we're engaged in.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So I think that again segues nicely into our next question was what's your own faith life like? I know you kind of talked a little bit about being on an immersion or a mission trip with some students and young people, but what's your own faith life like, and how would you describe your relationship with God?
So it's an interesting question. I am not in many ways and the most expressive person when it comes to
Hmm
my own faith life. I think that's growing up in a family of six brothers and stuff. You learn to sort of keep things to yourself sometimes. And now we share. Now that we're older, we share anything. So it's
hmm
funny. So, but I my faith was sort of fostered both in my home, first and foremost, with my mom and dad, who were very faithful. And we went to the regular routine and church on Sundays. But more so, they struggled and put us through Catholic school for 12 years. And I know that there were times that was a real struggle. But, when I went to St. Mary's School in Denville, which is so sad that it's recently closed, the elementary
hmm
school, we were right on the highway and the ambulance used to go by and we'd stop whatever we were doing to say a prayer. And so I sort of learned from that you can find prayer anywhere. You can find prayer, as Kathy and I did the other night. We were walking our dog Lucy, and you might see her if you ever see her, Colleen, on campus. Black dog, white chest, and if she's running around smiling, and she does, she's a dog, but she does smile. Just say hello and to ask her to go, tell her to go home. She knows how to get there. But we were walking around campus, and we stopped at the grotto. And we just both took a minute to say a prayer for whatever was on our mind at the time. So prayer could be found anywhere. I don't think it needs to be a formalized service. I think it can be found in song. I think it can be found in just quiet solitude. I think it can be found in observing something as simple as a beautiful tree or a beautiful sunset. All of those things are God's gifts. And I think we just have to recognize them and feel them, experience them, and say a quick thank you, Lord, for providing us. I take the Holy Spirit with me to work every day because without the Holy Spirit and the saints, certainly I'm taking Saint Michael with me right now because I need an archangel on my shoulder right
hmm
now to help us get through all of the challenges we're facing. So, these are some of the things that you learn, and
hmm
certainly you can fall back always on your faith. Um, so it's really something that, if I've answered your question, I think that's what I sort of see in my faith as.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I think you're right. I think especially during this time of the pandemic and quarantine, and it's not necessarily about those big transformative faith moments, but it's really about leaning on and relying on the little aspects of our tradition that we sometimes forget about.
Yeah.
I had a professor the other day ask if there was a patron saint of technology. And I was like, yes, actually, Saint Isidore, and as we're relying way more on technology to not only talk about, express our faith, but to also just communicate with people. And so our faith tradition offers so much during a time like this as well. So that's great.
Well, we all in our family, we all have our own personal saints. And, if you look at my family names, Joseph, Matthew, Christopher, Timothy, Peter, and Daniel. So I think we have
Nice.
most of the apostles and maybe a guy who was thrown into the lion's den once covered. So
Yeah, that's great.
my sisters Kathleen, Mary, and Maureen, both have their own. We have a real devotion in my family to Mary because
Mm,
my mother did, and because I think that going to St. Mary's, it was just always in front of us, and there's a
mhm.
real comfort there.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. That's great. So I think we'll move into our last question of our interview, which is there anything that you hope to accomplish faith-wise while working here at Caldwell?
So faith-wise, I think it is really important um, for our faith and our faith tradition that we establish and maybe even reestablish some of the opportunities for younger people to engage in faith. There are way too many Catholic elementary schools closing. There are way too many Catholic high schools closing. So, how are these students going to embrace their faith life? We know that we lose students from about 18 to maybe 35. We lose them a little bit in the Catholic faith. We've got to figure out ways to invite them back in. I was visiting with Cardinal Tobin, just a wonderful, wonderful, and holy man a few weeks ago. And I asked him that question, and he said, we can get them back by reading through. Actually, I know I'm not supposed to look away from the camera.
You're fine.
The book that Cardinal Tobin
Mm,
that I read, and I'm reading through it now. And so,
mhm.
as I look through the joy of the gospel, which was, um, I guess, by from Pope Francis, he said that's really one of the ways we can bring students and young people back into the faith and understand that it's not just about going to mass and confession and communion, although that's part of it. There you can find your faith in other ways and doing good works and whatnot. So my hope is that we can slowly bring students towards, um, deeper understanding of their faith. And we have students from many different faiths here, and we embrace that. And we hope that they will find through the Judeo-Christian values that we have, they will find more meaning in their own faith tradition. If not, find meaning in our faith tradition.
Great. Excellent. Well, very good. Well, before I close, is there anything that you would like to add or kind of comment on for our viewers today?
Thank you for what you do for our students and our faculty and our staff. And for me, I mean, it's always good to have a campus ministry to rely on students here. I am so eager to see an on-campus mass return to Caldwell. And I think, am I hearing one is being planned for maybe Sunday evenings?
Yes. Yeah, we'll have Sunday evening masses. Will begin this Sunday, September 6th at 7 p.m. and in person, but then we're also working on streaming those. So
Great. Well, you will see me there, hopefully in person.
great. Great.
If you're ever in need of an extra voice,
Great.
have my daughter Sarah around. I may actually have her join with you if
Excellent.
it's ever needed. Please
Hmm.
feel free to ask me because that's one of the ways she expresses her faith. She's been singing
Great.
since I don't know sixth grade since in churches and whatnot. So, um, but if she can help people get a deeper understanding of their own faith through song, she's happy to help as well.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, very good. Well, great. Well, I'd like to thank you, Dr. Whelan, for being with us today for this episode of CU Faith Fridays. To all of our viewers, thank you for tuning in and listening. And look, next week we'll have a new guest with us as we continue on the semester. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Kelly.